and welcome again to our webinar today. Just a quick look at our agenda. I'm going to spend just a little bit of time talking about the system architecture with Dynamics 365 Business Central. Most of my time will be in the system itself, so we'll walk through a role center, look at some feature functionality. I'm going to spend a little time looking at the integration points with the other Office applications. If we have time, we'll look at the app marketplace a little bit. Otherwise, I think we actually did another session on that, but we'll touch on that a little bit. And then as Sabrina said, if you've got questions, I'd love to take questions. So anything that comes up during the presentation, feel free to put it into the box and we will answer as many questions as we can today. All right, so let's look at the Dynamics 365 Business Central system architecture. First, let's talk about the product name. It's a long name, Dynamics 365 Business Central, but it's a very specific name. There's several products that roll up into the Dynamics 365 family of products. So we're specifically looking at Business Central here in this presentation. So if you go out and Google, or if you have done some research, you may see feature functionality that I didn't talk about today. It may or may not actually be in the product. It could be in another product that's in the same family as 365. So just looking at Business Central today. All right, so the system architecture. Overall, Business Central really is a three-tiered has a three-tiered architecture to the system. And this is in a SaaS environment, so we're talking about software as a service, but the underlying architecture is really the same as what an on-prem deployment in a multi-tenant environment could look like. So the architecture isn't changed. So let's talk a little bit about what's here. Over on the far left is the Business Central database, and it's still SQL Server on the back end. Even in the SaaS environment, that is the database engine that Microsoft continues to use. The middle tier is really what we would call the Dynamics 365 Business Central service tier. And what the service tier holds is listed down there at the bottom. So it's going to hold object definitions, it's going to hold business rules and user security. The service tier is what interacts then, or is the conduit between the database and the clients on the right. Okay, so object definition, and by that I mean table definition, column definition, pages, reports, etc. So those are all considered objects in Business Central. Business rules would be things like when I set up a sales order, I need to have a customer listed and I could change the bill to. Or a business rule could be about reserving inventory, for example. That logic sits in the business service tier, not at the database tier and not at the client tier. So that's really a differentiator between the product. The other big piece that we really need to address is user security. So security is handled using the service tier. So again, it's not at a database level and it's not at a client level, but it's in this business service tier. I've got extensions listed both at the database point and at the service tier point, and it really would depend upon the type of extension that's installed as to where that extension actually is going to live. So it would live in the business service tier for sure. It may or may not actually make database changes. So again, it would just depend on what type of an extension it is. A truly page-only extension, for example, would just reside in the service tier. It's not going to make database changes. If you did add tables or columns using an extension, then that obviously would update the database. So that's on the far left. Okay, on the right, let's talk about client options. And really, all clients, in essence, are treated the same way from a 365 Business Central perspective. They are going to access the business service tier. So when you look at the clients and we talk about being a browser-based application, I could be using, as the icons show here, Chrome, Firefox, IE, Safari. I could be using an app. I could be using Excel. We'll talk a little bit about edit in Excel. I could create my own API into Business Central, and then a question mark there is anything else that could be on the horizon or in the future to interact with the application. Those all are clients and they interact with the business service tier. The key thing here is that object definition, business rules, and user security do not reside in the client, they reside in the business service tier. What that means for you is if you use an app such as a tablet app or a phone app, or if you use Edit in Excel, or even if you create your own API, those business rules, object definitions, and security are still going to be applied. I don't need to, within my API, for example, create business rules. I don't need to, within Excel, to create business rules. If I add an extension to the application that adds columns or adds tables to my Business Central environment, those are going to show up and be available automatically when I look at my app. That could be on a tablet or a phone, when I look at the Edit in Excel features, and when I'm using an API or if I develop custom code. So very important to think about where business logic, where extensions reside as it relates to clients and the user interface. What this gives us the future possibility to do is really to take advantage of really any kind of development that can happen that could act as a client. So if you think about the Common Data Service, for example, that is now available with Microsoft, that's going to interact at a business service tier. If you think about Power Apps, if you think about Power BI, we're able to leverage current as well as future technologies without having to make changes to the underlying service tier of the database. So just like to point that out in terms of architecture. Okay, so let's look at Dynamics 365 Business Central. And I'm going to open that up. Let's see, today I'm using Chrome. So I'm in Chrome. All right, when I log into the application, obviously I'm in a browser, but I'm also part of the Office 365 suite. So I'm going to have direct access through the waffle to get to any of the other applications within the Office 365 family of products. Just to point out from an administrative perspective, licensing for Business Central is managed also within the admin portal of Office 365. So I don't need another tool. My users already exist there. All I'm going to do is assign them a license, and then that user is going to be available, actually just shows up automatically within Business Central to assign proper roles and security, for example, in the system. So it's not a separate user management system. It is separate security, but just user management is all handled within the Office platform. Okay, once I'm into a browser and I'm logging into an application, I'm going to log in as a user to a company with a role. Okay, and what the role is it's going to dictate how this initial landing page works for my particular user. So I'm currently in as the business manager role. So if I wanted to change my role, I can come up here to my settings, and I can see that there are several roles that are available in the organization. Role does not dictate security or access to data. So those are two separate things. Sometimes people get confused on that. A role just dictates what this initial landing page is going to be. The idea behind this initial role center is that I want to be able to do most of my job functions from this initial landing page. So I don't have to navigate elsewhere in the application. Things that are relevant to me in terms of queues are going to be showing up in this role center. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about how the role center is designed. The first thing to note is that all of these things can be changed. So as I walk through here, if I come up here to user personalization, I can actually change and, let's say move menus around if I want to. I can remove queues that aren't relevant, etc. So end users can personalize the system, or globally you could personalize the system. But no, things that are relevant or maybe I'm not using, I can get rid of to clean up the screens. But in terms of a navigation system, this is really designed as a two-click menu system. So if I'm clicking in cash management, and then I can go to payment journals, for example. If I'm finance, I can go to the chart of accounts. If I don't want to use the click system, I also have this find option up here. And this is, if I say chart of accounts, for example, I also have a direct list through this find me option to a particular page or report or task. Included in this search is documentation as well as information about the app source. So putting in chart of accounts, and I can see that there's 20 hits within the documentation that I could look at, and I can search or get direct access to it that way as well. All right, so two-click menu system. The next menu is really a direct link concept. So these are a series of bookmarks. So if I can go directly to customers, vendors, items, purchase orders, for example, if I want to. If I want an additional page to show up there, I as an end user can bookmark other areas of the application and have them show up as direct access to it from that menu system. The actions page, this really allows me to create a specific transaction or run a report or whatever. Again, just a different way of navigating the system. All right, most of our real estate here is taken up by this activities section. And the idea behind an activities section is I can set up what are called queues. And the queue could be a count of transactions. It could be some sort of calculation. Let's say I've got this average days for collections out there, or it could be a sum of numbers that are in the system. And the idea behind the queue is that I'm monitoring things that are happening within my organization that are relevant to my role. So if I switched roles to, let's say, a sales order processor, I'm not going to have things related to, overdue purchase invoices, because that's not the function that I have within the organization. I'm going to have more roles and queues associated with sales processing. So for example, I'm going to have a queue that says sales orders that are ready to ship. I'm going to have another queue that's going to tell me which sales orders have delayed shipments. Okay, so focused again on my role. Business manager has broad access, so these are sort of general roles. So the role is live, the queue is live. It's going to give me a current amount or quantity, whatever is in the system. They will update on a periodic basis. I think that's every 60 seconds. And then if I navigate back to the role, I'm also going to get an update. The queues can be color coded in the sense that if I'm within tolerance or outside of tolerance, there could be a green, yellow, red, or neutral condition that's set up. So in the case of $49,000 in purchase invoices, I'm getting close to some warning setting that I have because it's now yellow instead of green. From the queue, I can also navigate on the transaction. So if I click on that $49,000, I'm now going to see the transactions that make up that queue. So if you think about sales order processing again, the queue that says sales orders that are ready to ship, I'm not going to have every sales order there. I'm only going to have the ones that are ready to ship. And then my warehouse operations people click on the queue, and they're just going to be looking at the transactions that are relevant to the job function that they're performing. This is all overdue sales invoices. So that's the idea behind the queues within the system. Talking a little bit about one special queue here, which is sales invoices predicted to be overdue. And what this is an example of is the integration of Microsoft's artificial intelligence engine into Business Central. So if you've watched any television in the last year, you've probably noticed Microsoft's AI commercials. And Microsoft has, over the last 10 years, invested a tremendous amount of money into the development of their AI engine. And as a user of Business Central, you get to actually take advantage of that. So this particular engine is going to show me just sales invoices that are predicted to be overdue. And with this list, I'm just going to move this fact box over right here. I have the ability then to look at what's the payment prediction, and then what's the confidence level that the system is actually right. Okay, so in a traditional environment where I'm going to do some predictive analysis, most of the time you're going to develop some sort of linear model to do some predictions. With this late invoices, this allows me to do predictive analysis ahead of time. So prior to an invoice being posted, I also have a function that I can say what's the likelihood of it being late. But even after it's posted, I can do an update here and say, well, which invoices now do I potentially have a collection problem with, way ahead of it actually being late. So if you think about a sales order processor, if they say, well, you know what, this is actually predicted to be late based on some sort of condition that we'd have a hard time identifying, but we think it's going to be late. Maybe I change the payment terms. Maybe I request a down payment. Maybe I don't even sell to the customer. I don't know. Maybe I ask about other transactions that are late. The idea here is that you can make proactive decisions using artificial intelligence. A couple other places that Microsoft has integrated the AI engine. They're both an inventory that I would point out today. One of them is an inventory forecasting engine. So if you are an organization that has seasonality things, or really it's hard to predict inventory requirements, using the AI engine may give you an insight into what your inventories levels are looking like out into the future. The other place is an image review within inventory as well. So if I have an inventory item and I upload a photo of that item, the system can analyze the picture and determine what attributes it thinks I may want to assign to the item. So it could be the item type itself, it could be color, shape, size, again, using the image analysis AI engine that Microsoft has developed. So amazing functionality that can just be part of the Business Central system. While we're on navigation, I just point out this button up here. What this button does is allows me to really look at the system as a whole. So if I'm not really sure what I'm looking at in finance or cash management or sales, I can click this button. It's going to allow me to look at all the menu options. Explore all is going to open up the complete system to me in terms of navigation. So I can see that there's projects and warehousing and resources and all that sort of thing available to me. So if I don't know what I'm looking for, there is some functionality to view everything. All right. Elsewhere on my Role Center, if I continue to scroll down here, we have the ability to put some charts and graphs onto the Role Center. So this one, it happens to be an aging, but if I go in here to select chart, I've got some cash flow information, some P&L information, some top vendors, top customers, top items, that sort of thing. There are additional charts that are available that are role dependent. So if I'm in the project manager section of the application, for example, I'm going to be seeing projects actual to budget. If I'm in as a sales relationship manager, I'm going to see pipeline information. Okay, so role dependent type of information. This middle section here is an example of favorite accounts. We have favorite accounts, vendors, customers, items, and jobs or projects. And what this allows me to do is, as an end user, determine what do I want to review. So if in the case of account numbers, I can say, what GL accounts do I want to monitor? If I have customers, it's going to be, maybe the customers I'm working with. It's going to show the current balance outstanding for the customer. Vendors is going to be the same way. Items, I could see, particular quantity on hand information if I wanted to. Maybe there's some key items that I want to make sure we always have in stock, and I can put them on my Role Center and watch those. Jobs would be jobs that I'm associated with, so I'm going to get some actual to budget information. These cues, again, I said were user defined, so I can say what do I want to watch, but I also have then drill down capability to get more information. So petty cash, $96,000 in petty cash looks like it's probably an issue. I can click on the $96,000 and I'm now going to have access to the transactions that make up the balance of that account because it's an account number. I also have the ability then to further navigate. So under actions, and I say navigate, and I now have the ability to look at all of the transactions associated with the thing that I drilled down into. What I want to show you here is that in a few short clicks, I have access to a tremendous amount of information without having to run a report, without having to navigate anywhere else. All I'm doing is just clicking drill downs. What I like to show is the ability to see the full journal entry if I want to, all the tax detail, customer ledger entries and detailed ledger entries. Maybe I've got they sent us a check and then the check bounced and then I issue a credit and then I've got some sort of return that's coming in. All that information is available to me. And then value information is dealing with inventory costing. If I had jobs, that might show up here. Any other functionality that a particular transaction is leveraging, it's going to be available for me to look at. All right, trial balance, I can put some financial information if I want to on a Role Center. Self-service, these are going to be cues that are filtered to my user, so open timesheets, request to approve, etc. This middle section is a Power BI integration. And so what I like to point out is that this is a live integration with Power BI. So there are several reports that are delivered with Business Central that you can use, you can modify, you can create your own. This report actually lives in Power BI, so it's part of the Office family data visualization tool. But what this allows you to do is have one report, one source of truth, one report to maintain, update, etc. So leveraging, again, the full Microsoft product offering into Business Central. If you're unfamiliar with Power BI, it's a data visualization tool, allows me to slice and dice my data. We can do charts, that's what it's great at. We can do columnar type, reports if you want to. This is an example of an income statement that I created in here. Where the system shines best is to do data visualizations with data. So if you've got actual budget comparisons, for example, around my income statement, I can show those. Given that we have time, I love to show this one because it's a new data visualization that Microsoft just published with the August release. So this allows me then to look at all of my expenses, and then each of these sections I can expand to find out more information. So there's my expenses, and now I want to see what's the breakdown of my payroll expenses. For example, I can see I've got $7,000 in payroll taxes, 1% with life insurance, 1% work comp, et cetera, as I navigate through my data set. So Just another example of data visualization that you can embed from Power BI into Business Central. All right, report inbox. Report inbox, I would say, is sort of a it's almost an antique at this point. The system does allow you to schedule reports. So if I wanted an AP aging, an AR aging every Monday when I come into the office, awesome, I can schedule that, have it show up in my report inbox. The reality is that I can run really any report as of a date. So recreating agings and inventory valuations and all that sort of stuff is so easy to do and flexible that I just don't see a lot of people using the inbox, but it's there if that was something that you wanted to do. Okay, so this is the browser-based role center, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to switch roles quick so that you can see what another role would be, and I'm going to go into the production planning role. So my browser is going to refresh, and yeah, so this is really a simple role center, and it's designed to be used via a tablet, for example, for the end user. So not designed to be on the browser base, but what you can see is that this role center is greatly simplified. So my user is only looking at particular worksheets, some design information, and a very limited set of tasks. You also notice that the reports have been stripped off of this role center. The Power BI reports have been stripped off this role center. So real basic information if that's all you really want your users to see. If I come in here then to go to something else, let's say shipping and receiving with warehouse management. So this role center, again, a little different. I'm leveraging more actions with this role center, but you can see I've got release sales orders, I've got shipments that are today, pick shipments for today, posted shipments for today, expected incoming purchase orders for today. So queues geared around my specific job function. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the business manager role. And then what I want to do is I want to show you the different app interfaces. So I have got in an emulation mode the tablet interface. So what you can see is I still have charts, I still have my favorite accounts, I still have queues that are available to me, but this is designed to be used via a touch screen. So you'll notice if I open this up and then if I click on customers, then I'm going to get a set of customers. There are a couple other options to view data using a touch screen that make it easier to navigate if I don't want a list. So if I wanted the larger icons or even some tiles that I can take advantage of. Those are really useful when you look at items, for example. So maybe having an image of your item is how you want to navigate or find data. So I can put images in there and then it really shows well with the tablet interface. In terms of feature functionality, I can process sales orders, post transactions, really anything that I would want to do using the tablet interface. So you think about warehouse operations, picking, that sort of thing. Using the tablet interface in the warehouse gives me a portable device, larger screen, and full functionality to process reports, post transactions, etc. Next thing I like to show is just the phone interface, and this again is using the like an emulator within my browser, but you get the idea. So leveraging queues with the phone is really the best thing to do. So as I scroll through here, you can see that I've got queues that are going to give me sales this month. Again, overdue sales invoices. You notice they're the same queues that I had in the browser interface. I still have the capability then to look at charts and graphs if I want to, my favorite accounts, my favorite customers, vendors, etc. All of this, including the Power BI interface, will then work on the phone app. So if you think about remote users, remote salespeople, maybe you're the CFO sitting in Aruba and you want to review things on your phone, you can do that using the phone app interface. These will all resize based on the size of your screen. All these interfaces will, so the browser interface, the tablet, as well as the phone. So if you've got a large iPad, versus the smaller, maybe Samsung tablet, the systems will resize to fit your screen. The phone app and the tablet app are available using the Windows OS, iOS, or Android. So accommodate really any device that you potentially could be using in the field. Okay, so let's go over to back to my business manager login. All right, I want to just talk a little bit about some additional interactions that are available with Business Central. And the first one I want to talk about is within Outlook. So what I have the ability to do within Outlook, and I happen to be using the online application, but this will also work with the desktop version of Outlook, is I have this contact insights available to me. And what this is going to do is it's going to map my customer into the system, or actually it's going to map my vendor or customer into the system. And I can connect a link between the contact, the person that sent me the email, and an organization. And then within Outlook, I'm going to have visibility to current statistics for that customer or vendor. I'm going to know what do they owe us, what do we owe them, and I can drill into transactions. I also can actually create transactions from within Outlook with having to navigate over to Business Central. So what you're seeing is how Microsoft is connecting the full suite of Office with Business Central. A couple other points I'd like to just draw your attention to here is the first is an integration with Microsoft Flow. So this is using the approval engine, the workflow engine that's within Business Central, connecting it to Flow and then sending something like an email when I have a transaction to approve. So you'll notice that I can approve or reject a transaction within Outlook. There is also an integration with Microsoft Teams. So if I'm an organization that's implementing Teams, my approvals can actually show up as an interaction within Teams, and I can approve or reject or review or whatever I want in that application, not just within Outlook. All right. The last point I want to just show you in terms of the Office integration is an Excel integration, and this is called Edit in Excel. And what this allows me to do is to, again, leverage Excel as a client, and I can create new records, refresh data, etc., using Excel as a client. So this is for inventory, but if you think about customers, if you think about journal entries, getting data into Business Central and out of Business Central is really easy. As I said before, because of the three-tiered architecture, my security and my data validation models that are in Business Central are still used even though I'm using Excel. So I can't create data that's not valid. If I don't have permissions to create or update records, I'm not going to be able to do it in Excel. So this is, again, functionality available right out of the box. Okay. Let's see, we got about 1 minute left. I'm going to just show you extensions really quickly. So if I go into the extensions setup within the application, I can go to, what am I doing here? I can go to, my system's not cooperating. Okay, I can go to the extension marketplace right within the application. And what this allows me to do is to search all of the apps that are available within the application, actually within the marketplace, that can integrate with the application. So right now you can see there's 445 apps that are available that will integrate with Business Central, so you can search and look for what sort of integration you might want to add to the application. Ones I like to point out is there's everything from point of sale systems to, forecasting systems to language packs that would allow maybe your Spanish users or your Japanese users to use Business Central in a native language format. So a lot of options with extensions. Caveat with extensions, please call us before you install an extension so that we can help you through it. You do have a sandbox environment that's available to deploy extensions ahead of time if you want to test them out. So, all right, that takes us to the end of our time today. Do we have any questions we want to go over?
Yeah, we have a couple questions that came in here, Marcus, and I know we're right up at time here, but if you have questions, we're happy to stick on and answer them, so please type those in the questions pane. The first question, do you need a separate Power BI license to use that functionality within Business Central?
Yeah, so your Business Central license is going to come with a Power Pack license as well, which is going to allow you access to Power BI, Flow, and Power Apps. Okay, so that's included with the Business Central license. If you wanted someone else outside of those users to access it, then they would need a license.
Great, thanks. A lot of Dynamics GP users currently are utilizing Management Reporter. Does Management Reporter go away with Business Central, or is it included with Business Central?
Great question. Yeah, Management Reporter is not supported with Business Central. So within the application, we have what are called account schedules. So you can see that right here. Account schedules are very similar to, in terms of functionality, to what MR has. So you're going to get a row format, you're going to get a column format, and I can put those together to run financial reports. If that isn't enough functionality, then we also have an add-on called Jet Reports that does amazing work with financial reporting. It's based in Excel, so you get to leverage all of the Excel formatting and charts and fonts and all that sort of stuff. Good question, though.
Great. Same question in regards to smart lists.
Yeah, so if you look at this view, I didn't show you a list view, but this is a list view for items, for example. So I have the ability on a list to not only search, but I can set up advanced filtering. So if I say show advanced filter, I can filter based on really any column. In this case, I'm on an item, but I can filter on any column, including calculated columns like quantity outstanding, dollar value sales, whatever it might be. I also have the ability then to actually save this list so that it shows up in my list of available views. So it's not smart list, but what I would say is it's smart list like in terms of functionality. I can also change, if I go up here to personalize, I like to show this. I can actually remove columns if I don't want them in my list. And if I come over here to fields, I can also add other columns to my list. So maybe if my, what is that, assembly policy I want to list, add to my list, I can do that. So it's not exactly smart list, but it's pretty close in terms of feature functionality.